and we should be happening. And next is our camera. And it's got a little bit of sparkle in it here. I think the heat kind of knocks it out a little bit, I would say. And let's back up. And I'm going to need to loosen this up. I have another camera. You know, maybe I can get you guys to sit just a little closer together.
Sure.
And that way we can get you both to use the same microphone.
Oh, okay.
And even just a little bit more, because I want to get you both in the same picture, too. There, we're almost there.
Okay. We don't have to jump.
Oh, yeah, we're fine. This is sort of a rendition of pirate radio turned video.
Oh, did you see that movie? Pirate Radio. It was made in England. It's released about a month or so ago.
Oh, no, I haven't.
It's really
Oh, yes, I did. I see on the ship.
I haven't seen it, but I saw the ads.
Mm-hmm. And let's see, I'm going to bring this down and then bring this up so I can see your faces.
Oh, we're on TV too?
Yeah, you're on a video here. It's running. Everything's running a little bit slow, but it is happening.
I said I didn't agree to that.
Oh, okay. Well, would you prefer not to be?
Well, we'll see.
We'll see. Okay. Okay. Well,
Do we look nice?
Oh, you look great.
Okay.
Okay. So I think everything's going, and the question is, if I could get you to introduce yourselves and then tell me a little bit about what brought you here.
Well, my name is Marianne Mills, and I'm the vice chair for the Kanaitse Indian tribe in Kenai, Alaska. And we are here to inform the world about the climate change that's rapidly occurring in Alaska, and it is creating floods and erosion and melting of permafrost that's causing the gas to seep up from the tundra. And there are 31 villages in Alaska that face immediate threats, and there are also 200 tribes or villages in Alaska that are impacted by flooding and erosion, which is caused by severe fall storms. And also people living on the river in villages are having a lot of problems with ice coming down the river, and in some cases taking out, homes and property. So we're here to let the world know that we're the first people to be affected, and then it will travel down worldwide. And one thing, we feel that, there's probably a certain amount of climate change that's a natural occurrence, but there is a lot of the emissions coming out that is man-made. So we're concerned about this. We're concerned about our land being polluted. We have oil companies and mining companies and businesses, our corporations coming and drilling for oil in very sensitive areas, like, for instance, the Beaufort Sea. And we're trying to get, industry closed down until they can do it in a good way.
So a moratorium is kind of like what you folks are looking for?
I know many of I'm not here to speak for all of the tribes. I'm not authorized, but I do know Earl Kingiak from Point Hope, and I know that they are working very hard to keep the oil rigs out of the Beaufort Sea. And one of the reasons for this is, there's very little contingency plans. If there is a disaster, like the Exxon Valdez is a good example, where everything, the oil companies were saying everything was in place, and of course we found that it wasn't. And the Inupiat in the Arctic are subsistence peoples, and they rely heavily on the whale. And the reason that the whale is so important for them is because the whale is like fuel, and it keeps their body warm. And if we had time, I could tell you a story about
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, Greenpeace came up to save the whales, but what they didn't realize was how the indigenous peoples relied on the whales. So they went out in the boats and to go whaling, and the Greenpeace also went to go to
stop them,
oppose, the whalers, and they got stranded on a iceberg, a big iceberg, and so some of the whalers, one of them was a good friend of mine, they went by and they stopped and spoke with them, and they wanted, the Greenpeace wanted to be taken back, right now, and they said, well, we can't, we're whaling. But what we'll do is call the Coast Guard, call help for you. And you just need to, stay put, and we'll give you some muktuk. And this, if you get cold, or when you get cold or hungry, and muktuk is whale blubber, just cut some off and eat it, and you'll warm up. And all of the Greenpeace, they were very reluctant, and all of them decided to try it. So they tried it, and sure enough, they got warm. And all but one Greenpeace person. So they were rescued by the Coast Guard, and they brought them back to Barrow. And one of the people that was stranded was so thankful that he went back to the village and donated time. He said, I never realized how important the whales were to the Inupiat people, and he did apologize.
All right. Well, I think that's one of the things about culture, of learning to understand and respect each other's culture, and it brings in, the other concepts of exploitation rather than utilization and respect that comes through. The laundry list of dysfunctions is horrendous. Mm-hmm.
It is, and we're trying to. What we're trying to do in Alaska with the climate changes, we realize that it's approaching us at such a fast rate. This was a very unusual year for Alaska. I think it was colder in like Colorado and the Midwest, and where they were having all of that weather. We were having warm weather.
And what is warm in Alaska?
I can tell you in south central Alaska, usually we used to have maybe a month of 30 to 40 to 50 below, at least 1 month, and then off and on, it'd warm up a little and then down. This year we didn't, I don't even think we got even 30 below. And so I think our average temperature this year was probably about 10 degrees warmer than it was last year, or maybe even more, because we did not have the cold, and this change really, we know we are all coastal communities on the Kenai Peninsula. We're a peninsula, and the scientists are projecting that there probably will not even be a Kenai Peninsula eventually because of climate change. Because
the melting glaciers will eat them?
Not only the melting glaciers, but, the ice up north in the Arctic, that never melts is starting to melt. Well, this is affecting everyone's weather. So that's why you see a lot of storms that are unusual. I think Oregon had its first hurricane or tornado, which was never heard of. So what we're facing in Alaska is we're going to have to remove a lot of the villages and relocate them. And there isn't the money to do it. And this is a good time to start planning. I think Alaska would be a wonderful place to find ways to build better houses, to use alternative energy. There's a lot of technology, and what I am afraid of is that if we don't move these villages, they could be destroyed along with the village, the people who live there. So,
well, that's how many people are we talking about?
Our population in Alaska, probably for the whole state, is not very big. I would say probably around 1 million. And the indigenous population is about 13%. So there's approximately 200 of our 200,000
people that may need to be relocated.
No, of indigenous people.
Right.
And
well, that's just the indigenous folks that would be maybe relocated.
Yes.
Depending on exactly where they lived in reference to. So the thought is that the water is going to be rising, and that's why they're going to need to be relocated.
And the storms.
And the storms. So the storms have become more intense?
Yes, and it's eating up the land.
Erosion.
Mm-hmm. And, I'm here to advocate for our people. A lot of it, we have a lot of stories, and one of the stories we have is about respecting Mother Earth. And it's an old story that was passed down, a raven story of why Creator created the human and what the land looked like before the humans came, which was completely different than it looks like today. And that if we don't respect her, and also I'd like to mention that Creator gave the job of teaching those who are destroying the land to respect the land. And that was also in the prophecy, that there will be people who will try to destroy the land. And so the Raven people are the ones that are trying to get the message out. And
can you share a Raven story on this kind of... is it prohibited, or is it possible?
No, it isn't prohibited. It's we call Creator Nakaltani, and he went to Raven and said that he was going to create a new species, the campfire people, or the real people, and that Raven and the other birds would need to make a place for the people. And so Raven, respecting Creator, knew that this was very serious and he had to get the job done. And they lived on an island, and it was called Bird Island. And all of the birds came, and he told them the dilemma, and they said, and Raven said, but we have to do this. Creator asked us to, but our island is way too small. So we'll need to make it bigger. And so one of the birds said, well, I saw some whales over there, and maybe they could move some of that land to ours, and then there would be room for the humans. And so Raven asked the whales to do it, and just the whales started pushing, and the land mass started coming to the island. And then it didn't need to be pulled or pushed, because it was like on a course of its own. It was meant to be. And one thing, that a Creator told Raven is, when the humans come, you're to teach them how to respect the land. You're to teach them how to respect all of my creations on the land. And out of respect for you, I will name one of the clans the Raven Clan. And when there will be humans who are trying to will try to destroy the land, and it will be the Raven Clan's responsibility and duty to try and prevent it. And if they don't, he told Raven, if you don't teach this to the humans, and if the humans are unable to fulfill this, then I will rearrange the earth like it doesn't look like today, and the humans will also destroy you. But I promise you, if they destroy you, I will also destroy them. And so that is the prophecy. We have a chance, but we have to show respect. And that's one thing I think that is very common in all indigenous cultures, is the respect of the land, because we are a part of it. We are not, the ownership part, we are a part of it. We don't own it. Creator owns the land. So, the people, I feel that with what is going to occur, this is a good time for not only the United States, but the people of the world to recognize what the countries in the Arctic are facing. It's not just only Alaska, it's all of the Arctic, and what is going to occur when there is no food, or when there is no people do have to migrate. So Alaska for the United States this is an opportune time for the new technology and science to come out. And
well, in reference to that, new technologies, because my sense is that it's old ways into a new world, that we're basically looking at indigenous architecture, where like earth lodges or the Modoc or the different earth buildings that you didn't need insulation and you didn't need as much heat because they were built somewhat in the ground and covered with earth itself. That the structures that the indigenous people had developed over centuries, millennium, I should say, had, sort of developed this sort of reciprocity kind of scenario with living things, and that is more, and that I'm not quite sure about modern technologies. I'm sitting here using all of this electronic stuff. But my sense is that this is a fleeting moment.
Yes, it could be, but there is some new technology, and our people are people that we are allowed to grow and to learn. And we see all of this waste of plastics and bottles, and that could be made into a foam insulation and refurbished so it doesn't go into the ocean. So if we're using it, we need to clean it up.
And in reference to that, one of the things that I think is very important is zero waste.
Yes.
And that you need to bring your own cup and bring your own bottle. We need to develop an events bag. A bag that has your own little cup in it and your plate and all of that stuff, so you don't need to be accessing all of this plastic. The handshake, or the new model, if you take your hand and go like this, you'll see the O. That's the zero, and the three fingers is the waste, W. So we go zero waste. That's the new sort of model. Instead of the peace sign, zero waste.
Yes.
So you got to practice. You got to do that to everybody on the screen here, on this little screen.
Okay.
Here, wait a second. Here, you got to do it to this thing. Okay, there we go. Zero
waste.
That's it, right there. And you got to turn it this way, because that way I can see it. Zero waste. All right. Thank you. And once again, we're speaking with
Marianne Mills, Kanaitze Indian tribe from Kenai, Alaska, and could I say one more thing?
Well, you can
that
say
we-
as much
okay.
as you like.
One of the problems that we're having is I read a lot of reports too that the United States puts out, and we have in Alaska is a unique situation. We are when they established Alaska, they call it a unique status, but unique in a way that the Alaska indigenous people are left out of the equation. And the government, we're getting all of these laws that, we have this program and that program, and we can help the people here with rebuilding. Well, it works in the contiguous United States, but not in Alaska, because if you're not in a civilized borough, as they call it, you're not qualified for certain funding like HUD housing and so forth, which, the people are so poor that it is impossible for them to relocate because there are no jobs there or very little economy there. And where gasoline or fuel oil costs anywhere from $10 to $14 a gallon. And
10 to what?
$10 to $14 a gallon for fuel. And the people just cannot afford that. And then the state programs are if you they do not recognize tribal governments. And so they establish themselves, and what they're trying to do is get the tribes to become boroughs.
Right, so it's the 1934 Reorganization Act applied in modern times, where traditional governments are not allowed to be the governing bodies.
Well, Alaska is so unique in many ways. What we found is that we found the title of Alaska, and it's still with the Indian, Eskimo, and Aleut peoples, or the indigenous peoples of Alaska. And there has been trillions of resources, dollars of resources taken out of Alaska, yet there is no money to help the indigenous people to relocate, for fuel. Venezuela gives us fuel, free fuel.
Well, one of the other things that I heard that was really hard to comprehend was that Alaskans are basically part of a corporation, that there's a lot of corporation, that the indigenous people that formed this huge corporation.
No, we did not.
Oh, your crew didn't?
We did not. I was there during that era.
Maybe you could explain a little bit about what happened with that concept.
Well, what had happened is more people were coming in, and our people were trying to stand up for our people's rights, but we didn't have the knowledge that we should have had, and that the government had an international obligation to us to educate us, because we were listed in the UN Charter. We have the right to not only decolonization, but nationhood, or even compacting with other countries that we could trust. This was never told to us. And so during the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act, it was decided that they didn't want us to have reservations. They were going to experiment on us. And this is important because it's going to affect every American. And what had happened is they established corporations. And President Nixon called, I was there, and he called to say that he just signed into law the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act, giving us 40 million acres, I think, and I can't remember. It was a sum of money.
So basically, they designed a reservation space for you folks.
They did not want reservations. They wanted us to incorporate under the state of Alaska. And so
Townships.
No, for corporations, corporate land.
Corporate
It
land.
had nothing to do with villages. It had nothing to do. What they were trying to do is turn us into a
Corporate
legal
assets?
illegal. Yeah, corporate assets and illegal fiction, and all of our names like Denina, Inupiaq, Yupik, Eyak, all mean real people, but that's what they turned us into, was a corporation. Because it was an act of Congress, Congress says, we can't help any of you. You have to go to the state, and the state will, when we try to contest anything, the state will say, well, because this was an act of Congress, we can't help you. Our corporations are not even covered under SEC or any of the other protections that the other American corporations are. But what they decided, and Ted Stevens had a lot to do with this, is recognizing our corporations as governments. So now, not only did the tribal people lose their land to corporations that we have very little say-so in, they also are taking over our governments because they're getting the funding that should be given to our tribal governments.
And I think this is like you said, it's very important to understand this because it's so confusing that you just wouldn't believe it that it actually happened. So Congress decides that the indigenous peoples of Alaska are now a corporation.
That's
one
pushing.
corporation.
Yeah.
They're still
12. We have
12.
12. Well, actually 13 with the 13th region.
13 corporations.
But the 13th corporation are for the Alaska Natives who moved to the contiguous United States. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
okay. So then, who is the CEO? The chairman, or however that goes, of the corporations?
Yes.
I'm sure they're not traditional people.
No, they are not traditional people, and what it created was a two-class system, or maybe even a three-class system.
Within the indigenous population.
Yeah, and it divided our people, and it caused a lot of dissension. Well, divide and conquer,
Right.
And so, that is what it created, and now, just recently, the Supreme Court, in its decision, decided that corporations have human rights. See how it's going to seep in. Not only it will jump from us to the whole entire United States because their dastardly plan works so well on us.
So now that you're an asset of a corporation, you are a fictitious being.
Legal fiction.
A legal fiction. It's just phenomenal to kind of grasp. What was the intent?
Well, the intent was to take our land. The whole intent of this Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act, and even in the Statehood Commission report, it was not for the indigenous peoples. It was to get the oil for the big corporations, and to try and deceive everybody into thinking that the United States owned Alaska, which they do not, and still to this day they do not, and that's why we do go to the UN.
Have you worked with the Western Shoshone at all, Carrie Dan?
No, but I read their case and I was just really proud because every time there's a win, it's a win for all of us.
Right, because the Western Shoshone have won with the Organization of American States, had a positive decision, and also with the CER, the Committee for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, had an impressive sort of slapping the hand of the U.S., but the U.S. responded by going out and, stealing a bunch more of their horses. It's phenomenal that there is no respect for international law or law itself.
Unless it's them wanting other countries to live up to their international obligations, and that's.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see the debt issue married with the recognition of treaty rights in all of that stuff.
It would be interesting, and it's in my heart. I am not a corporate. I am not a corporation, and that's why I do what I do. And it bothers me to see all of these things occur on my land. My land is one of the most polluted lands in the state because of the oil industry, and here we are, paying with our lives for corporations to become very, very wealthy, and we never really received anything.
Once again, we're speaking with
Marianne Mills.
Do you have a website or an organization that you work with?
Yes, I do. I work with what is called the Indigenous Peoples and Nations Coalition, and the Alaska Intertribal Council made this trip available for me, and I have presented at many of the functions on the sovereignty status of Alaska and the indigenous peoples, and the truth is so powerful. It's so powerful, and of course our people would like to have their freedom and would like to have their land. And
the idea is action. We all know, I think everyone on the planet at this point knows that we're heading towards a cliff at 100 miles an hour, and the best that people can do is suggest that we slow down. It would seem like it might be time to stop and maybe go the other direction. So what is your sense in terms of just transition or transition status or ideas? Are you a REDS? What's your opinion of REDS and cap and trade, carbon credits?
Well, cap and trade and carbon emissions, tax, I are two examples of how maybe a certain percent of that tax could be targeted for Alaska and the villages to understand what is happening. We really hope that the world will be will compassionately pay attention to how climate change is affecting us, because the rest of the world is next, and how it affects not only the health of our species and our people, but how it affects our spirit.
Well, and that's probably the focal point of change is like I think the problem with most people is they don't recognize their spirit. Most people think they are their bodies.
No.
And it's really interesting to be in this dimension when people think it's like thinking your car or your shoes or something, rather than recognizing the light energy within yourself and the consciousness and the fact that it's only by our mutual sharing of light that all of this is happening. So I believe that as well. I think that's a very strong point, is that we need to recognize our spiritual connection and simultaneously with the synergistic relationship with all living things, that we are not individuals, because I think that's the other part of it. If we can, sort of recognize we're all part of the same tree, then we don't want, the other limbs of the tree to go away, because then that's more work for you. That
we never understood people thought different than we did, because, we do see our spiritual connection not only to each other in the world, but also to all of God's creations,
Right.
or Creator's creations. We don't call Creator God. We call him Creator or Nakaltani.
Nakaltani.
Yes.
And well, this is the one of the little pamphlets that's put out by the IEN about reds, because they're looking at basically saying that if you can pee in the swimming pool, and you can pay somebody else so that nobody will notice, kind of thing. Even though we're all in it together. Or I guess a better way, Tom was using the thing in the 1700s, the Catholic Church. You could sin, and you could pay for these. I forget what it's called at this very moment, but you could pay for your sins, but they had indulgences. So you could pay, and you could indulge yourself, but still be considered karmically clean. So it seems, and the idea of utilizing the resources for the South, or I think the way the Reds things works, they identify a forest in South America, and this carbon sequestration generates a certain amount of profit because it absorbs that much carbon that is then quantified to a dollar value that is then owned by a corporation that they can pollute to that dollar value without any impact. But one of the impacts is they might throw out all the people that are living in the forest so that they can have total control. It's like a whole nother realm of colonialism that's really phenomenal.
Well, and I think it's going to bite them really hard if they go with that thought, because when things get really, really bad, and the humans, number one, are probably the only species that, excuse the expression, craps in their own nest. And has created, a large part of what is occurring today. And the reason I thought of the North, having a certain amount set aside to help the North, because we certainly are not getting it from the United States government. Well, I can't say not getting anything. We are getting some of the villages. I think they are planning to move maybe two villages they were talking about, but it hasn't yet been done or decided. But
are they thinking about indigenous architecture, or are they going to build green mobile homes?
Well, let's hope they don't do another string of HUD housing that cannot withstand the Arctic temperatures.
Well, or the psychological, if you walk, it's like, it's difficult with HUD housing, especially if you have an indigenous kind of nature.
I think that, hopefully that they will include the indigenous peoples in the process, because a lot of our people have done great, extensive research on the best way and where to move. We have people like, for instance, I was speaking with George Edwardson up in Barrow, and indigenous science is always not a part of their planning. But for instance, nobody knows our land better than we do, and the cycles of our land. And George was saying, we know exactly how high the waters are going to come up, so we know exactly how many feet away we have to build. Other scientists do not know that.
The extractive sciences. I'm amazed that where I live in Northern California, that the people that devastated, far out, the other camera came back, devastated the forest, all had college degrees. It's amazing. Rape, pillage, and plunder is something that's actually been perfected in the United States, as opposed to something that, I don't know. I'm okay. I'm just. This is a pretty low key operation here. We're here. This is www.earthcycles.net. We're here in. I keep thinking Coach Obama, but it's Tikapaya? Tikapaya. And anyway, at some point I'll actually remember the name. Believe it or not, folks.
I would just like to make one more comment to the world that, the world needs to understand the significance and the value of the Arctic staying frozen and how it serves all of the nations by cooling the Earth's temperature, and it acts like an air conditioner for our Mother Earth. So in that aspect, climate change goes beyond all racial boundaries. And, when we look at the best techniques, and maybe not only in the building of suitable housing, but what happens to the spirit of the people when they have to move from their homeland, when the foods that they have been eating for tens of thousands of years is no longer available, or when food won't be available, what is going to be the human code of conduct? And these are things that's going to affect everyone, and since it needs to start not only worldwide, but don't leave Alaska out. We're always at the outside peripheral of the world, and we always have been. No one knows what happens in Alaska. Nobody knows that we lost 75 to 80% of our population when people came into our land. So.
Well, we got a little bit of a black spot there. I was trying to move things around and knocked over the camera. That's one of the problems with this kind of an operation where everything's on the floor. Maybe you could repeat that last part again.
About the earth cooling? Or
yeah.
Oh, the spirit of the people, and, well, it is important, I believe, for the people of the world to realize the importance of Alaska, the Arctic staying frozen, and how it serves all of the nations by the cooling of Earth's temperature, which acts like a air conditioner for our Mother Earth. And that climate change goes beyond all racial boundaries. And when you consider that, and then you consider the human impact and the animal impact with regard to having to change your whole diet, which we know will create a lot of disease, which we already have in Alaska today. We have the indigenous people has among the highest disease rate in the nation. And I attribute that to a lot of the closing of fishing for indigenous people, our people, and the lack and closing hunting for our people in certain areas. And when scarcity becomes a problem for the world, what code of conduct will there be for the peoples? And when, food and other things become scarce, fresh water. And what about, the spiritual collapse of the people? Will we become less than people? And these are things no one is taking into consideration, but it will eventually affect every single one of us and our future generations. And we in our traditional laws, we have to our decisions have to take into consideration 7 generations.
Well, in reference to that, we also have another guest with us. Maybe we get you to introduce yourself, and we'll go from there.
Hello.
Great.
My name is Kay Wallace.
my Indian name is Kay Kavichik. It means arrow carrier, and it means I carry messages between groups of people. And long time ago, I would have run, and in the winter used a dog team. But I want to show you a map of Alaska.
Okay.
And then
let's see if we can get it on the screen here for our...
No, it's big. I don't know.
Oh, it's really big.
But if we could...
Well, here, hold on. Go ahead and keep talking.
Okay. I'm a indigenous Indian from... my mother is from Old Crow, Canada, and my father is from Fort Yukon.
We'll have to put it right where this picture is. Okay, now go your way.
We're organizing the map here.
I just want to get it in the camera there.
Okay.
Can we quite see... Okay, now, if we can hold it there, just put your hand against it, and then I'm going to change the focus
Okay.
on the lens so we can zoom in a little bit. Okay. And I'm going to zoom in just a little. Zoom out. Okay, but we got to keep talking.
Okay.
Okay, I'll get this now. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm from the interior of Alaska, and that's this area here. And over here is Canada. And when they put this land in the line in so straight between Canada and the United States, they said that the Indians and up here the Eskimo people, that we traditionally travel back and forth. In fact, one of our tribes' villages is located on the Canadian side, and that is where my mother is from. Now, this river, let me see. This is Fort Yukon, where my father is from. Now, there's a Porcupine River that goes over here, and right across the border is Old Crow, Canada, where my mother is from. But we're all the same tribal people. We're Athabascan, just like Navajo and Apache are Athabascan. Our language is similar. And our stories go that we traveled up north from the south. And so we have the same language. But up here, we live off the land. We don't have grocery stores up there, and what grocery stores we do have is very, very, very expensive. Up here in the northernmost Indian village, Arctic village, last year they were buying 5-gallon can of gas at $45. So that was $9 can of gas. And they were struggling, and I said, well, if we make the story, not make the story's already made, but if we tell the story of what is going on up there, someone may help us. And but they said, no, we'll make it, Kay. And that's how it all is through this country. And it's called the Tanana Chiefs region. When we first, there's 49, 47, 42 villages. And so they came together. Now, when land claims happened, and the education of the leaders was, I think someone told me the average was fourth grade to 6th grade. And then all of a sudden we're taught corporation. We don't know what it means. All of a sudden we're set up. And we believe that, we were set up for failure, and that after a certain amount of time, the stalk became open will become open in the future. Now, can we hang on to that stock for 7 future generations? Because as a 56-year-old elder, I have, it's Mary Ann and I responsibility to protect 7 generations. And the next generations coming behind us, they have to protect 7 generations. And that means that like the Western world just lives for today. I need that 56-inch screen television, and I need it. I'll be a better person if I have that television. But what about their relations? 7 generations from now, what about them? What do we leave for them? And an example of this is I serve on the Gwich'in Steering Committee, set up by the Athabascan and villages, kind of like a consortium. And we were, and our job was to protect the calving grounds of the caribou. And the thing is, on this map here, you see Canada, and the caribou migrate, thousands of them. The ground vibrates and shakes. You can feel it. You can feel it come out. It is such a spiritual experience. It just brings tears to your eyes because it's so holy and sacred. And they said that you will be on this, group to protect the caribou, because the way the caribou goes, the way we go. And so we humbly and respectfully try to protect their calving ground. Their calving, so they come up here from Canada and they cross over the border, and they have done this.
Whoops. So much for our tape job.
It's okay. I think I'm through, so.
No, I think you're just getting started. Well, hey, we'll stop with the map, maybe. We'll just let the maps collapse.
Yeah.
We'll just drop that and just start staying focused with the story.
Yeah, so
it's another example of how industrial things don't always last. Our tape was only good for so long.
It did its job.
It did its job for a second.
Thank you, tape.
And here we go again. Let me. I'm going to shift this camera back.
Well, I have pictures.
Okay. Well, we can try to shoot them in here.
Oh, okay.
Let me use this camera. Mm-hmm. Whoops, that's on you. Okay, so let me use this camera. Whoops, that one gets in the way. Okay, hold on one second. This is live here, if you can't tell. This is www.orcycles.net. We're live in Bolivia at the People's Conference for Mother Earth. And we're speaking with
Kay Wallace.
And your organization?
I'm a member of the Gwich'in, Athabascan Gwich'in, and on my mother's side, Athabascan Vantat Gwich'in. And I'm attending this conference. Was invited to attend the conference by Alska Intertribal Council, which I very much appreciate for many, many, many reasons. And mostly, I appreciate being able to talk for the animals and Mother Earth. It humbles me greatly. And so we're down here to tell our story. And like I was talking about grocery store previously, we have no grocery stores out there, and what we do have sell the basics, and we cannot afford like meat. I came into a village and they had bought a small chicken that was like $50, just a small chicken.
For $50?
Yes, frozen. But that's how much it is in the grocery store. So consequently, we live off the land. And in Alaska, if you're a speck on the landscape, miles and miles, nobody else there. You better be a thinking speck. Now, and you have to be trained. It isn't something that you can buy a gun and buy a new 30-06 and go out there with your gun and bang, bang. No, because sometimes those animals start hunting you, and you're no longer the hunter. But we believe that the animals give themselves to us. And so consequently, they hunt moose, caribou, fish, salmon, and because we live along a huge river. Some parts of the Yukon River you can't see across. That's how wide it is, and it is very fast, and it is glacier. It is glacier water, so that means it's moving tons and tons and tons of sand down that river, going to the mouth of the river. It's one of the largest rivers in North America, and so we also live off birds. So all of this is how we live out there. And the only way into the majority of our villages is by airplane. And in the summer, you can do boat. In the winter, you could dog team, sometimes snow go or four-wheeler. And it's a very simple life. Not very simple, because it's very complicated. But to other people from the city, they would think it was simple. People would say that we're poor because unemployment and it's not just our area; it's other Native people's area too. But unemployment can be 85%, 92%. I mean, so consequently, we have to live off the land. But with climate change, it affects everything. For the fish, they can't survive in a higher temperature of water. Good oxygen in the water is cold water. And so if the temperature rises, we will see less salmon, especially when the salmon goes clear across the state of Alaska. You saw the huge map, and the salmon swims all the way to its birthing grounds into the Canadian border. And that's where, and they lay eggs all along the way so that we can have, the cycle of life, the salmon cycle of life. We love the land. And the land loves us. Otherwise, it wouldn't give us our food, our nutrients. And its beauty, the beauty. But let me tell you one story that ancestors told us. Now we see the ducks, we can hear them, and there they come. And but when the ducks used to come in my great grandpa's days, the sky would be black. They would block out the sun. There'd be so many of them, and calling, and And now you don't see that anymore. They don't block out the sun at all. It's real quick. They just fly over. And whereas previously it was hours. It could be. I mean, and so now we have that no more. We miss the little things, and we noticed this during what was it, 10, 20 years ago? The swallows. We used to have swallows that would nest in the bank because the bank would be dry and easy for them to make their little nests. We don't hear swallows no more, and our kids won't hear them, and our grandkids won't hear them, and so the world is going through change. We can't go back. We need to, we're going to be called upon to make great sacrifices and great changes. And not just the people who live off the land, the people who live in the cities. Everybody. And you have to give. And even if the richest person, he may be rich now, but what about your 7 generations? Because of our behavior today, will we make them suffer? You know, will we all be walking around with a mask because we can't breathe because of the particles in the air that will get stuck in our lungs? Will we have to walk around with our hands covered in plastic gloves because everything, the bacteria is growing fast in this warm climate? I mean, that I don't know that'll happen, but just trying to see examples. I mean, what will our future generations face? How can we help them? Survival. And just one little story. Somebody asked me one time, what do your elders talk about? And I told them we talk about Darwin and the Darwin theory that went wrong. And that Hitler had this only, this particular type of people will survive. It was mistranslated, grossly mistranslated. What survival of the fittest means to us is genetically defined. Okay, the Hopi, the tribal people, the Hopi tribal people sent out messengers in the 60s and 70s, and they came to the University of Washington, and they told us about the hieroglyphics and what the translation meant, and they told there was four divisions or sections or four ways of life that human beings were going to go, and like one of the hieroglyphics, it showed ducks crashing into the earth. What did that mean? Ducks crashing into the earth. What did that mean? The car was invented. The automobile was invented. They started making highways. Maybe it was just one lane, but pavement. Well, the heat coming off the pavement, how you call that?
Vapor vectors? I don't know.
Anyway, what the duck saw was the same thing coming off the rivers, the lakes, the ponds. And so the duck started trying to land on the highway, thinking it was a river. So back to survival of the fittest. Those ducks that could distinguish between that heat wave coming off of the highway and the heat wave coming off of water, they survived. And that's survival of the fittest. Who knows of all the people in the world? Who knows who has what genetic is going to help them survive in the future? Nobody is better than anybody else. Somebody will help the world and people survive. That's what we talk about. And we live in one of the harshest climates in the world. In my area, it can get down to 60, 70 below zero, where you throw out a hot cup of water and it's ice by the time it hits the ground. And then in the summer, it's in the 90s. And the sun is up here, and because we're on top of the world, not quite on top of the world, but anyway, and we're here, and the sun is just shining right there. And that 90 could be, in Bolivia, 120. And that's the extremes that we live off.
You mentioned that there were 4 parts of this Hopi prophecy.
Yes. And the last one, it shows us there, and then it shows these red things falling, and it doesn't really have a form, so you can't say it's a rock. There's been several suggestions of what it is, but that will be the 4th change, and we don't know what it means. The reds shall fall from the sky.
The reds shall fall from the sky. Interesting. Okay, so maybe we could go backwards. The first change is...
I don't remember them, but
okay.
You can look them up on
okay.
the web.
And we just look up the Hopi prophecy.
And on Hopi Indian prophecies. And they decided to share it with the world. At first they did not share because it wasn't sharing. It was just
entertainment.
No.
Well, I think that's what the Western world would have looked at it as, opposed to actually seeing it as a map through time.
Yeah. So they decided to tell us about it. And I remember I went up to him after the presentation, and I waited, and because there was very few Indian people in the room, very few Indian people going to school, college in the 70s, and I said to him, I thought we weren't supposed to speak of religious things. I thought we weren't supposed to tell because misunderstanding will arise if we try to explain it. And plus that they take our words and turn it. And so we just kept quiet. And you could look at an indigenous person, and you might think they're poor, you might think, this and that, because we're not of the Western way. Inside me, I am not of the Western way, and I will not assimilate. Because what I have been taught and seen among my people, and it's it makes me who I am. So I said to him, why are you telling this? Why are you sharing this with them? He said, don't worry, don't worry. Those who will understand, and those who don't, won't. And it won't go into their being. You see, every cell inside you, and we live, what's that word? Symbiosis. We have that engine, mitochondria, that makes our energy in our cells. And it can't live without us, and we can't live without it. And that's a story of the world, and that's a story of life. People think a rock is just a rock, but that rock is alive. It's a different form of energy. So all things are alive. I'm not better than a rock.
Just a different frequency.
Yeah.
One of our statements is survival's not for everyone. And looking at old ways into a new world kind of scenario. Once again, we're speaking with
Kay Wallis, Wallis.
And do you work with an organization specific?
Being 65 years old, I've worked in several areas, except my whole life is dedicated to the people, and all people, and I have sat on the Gwich'in Steering Committee to protect the caribou calving grounds. And if you'd like me to explain that, I can.
I would, because I don't think people quite understand what it is when the mosquito issue happens and all of that. I think that'd be a great idea.
Thank you, gracias. My favorite subject. I don't know where to start. Okay, we're the caribou people. We live off the caribou. And 1988, the Athabascan, Northern Athabascan, hadn't had a meeting in over 100 years. We only gathered when we were threatened. And all of a sudden we saw that we were threatened. Remember that I showed you where the caribou migrate for thousands of miles to go and have their babies and give birth on the 1002 area, and this is part of the of a refuge, and the only part we want is very, very small, and we want it so that they can always go there and have their babies. And what that provides, they're so smart. They're say like their birthing room. We always say you wouldn't put an oil derrick up in my, if I'm delivering a baby. Anyway, so they go there to give birth, and the wind blows off the ocean, and this land is flat, and I don't know how many miles it is. Say it's 20 miles from the beach to the mountains, and so the nice cold, cool wind blows onto this kind of flat land, and filled with like moss. It starts with a G. Anyway. Very, very, very high in nutrients. And so when the babies are born, they can just start eating right then and get ready for the long trip back to Canada. Lichen? Lichen. Okay, lichen. Going back to my old ways. Yeah, so there's so that nice cool wind also. They're also like just flies and mosquitoes and everything. They get in their eyes. They're all over them. But when that wind blows, then the flies and the mosquitoes go away. So they're there for the nutrients, the rich nutrients, the breeze that gets the insects away. Plus that they're predators, like the wolves are in the mountains, and they're giving birth too. So there's like this pause. and I wish I could remember this couple. They were American, and they went to Canada, and anyway, they just recently got married, and their dream was to follow the caribou.
1,000 miles through the mountains, the snow. There was a really wonderful movie that was done, Never Cry Wolf. It was relatively funny, but also kind of insightful into the exploitive nature of modern man at the same time, and just the sort of the synchronicity and how the synergy of all living things as one. But sort of a Western guy going up there to check it out. Well, and let's see, I was starting to think of someone else that was part of the IEN that I can't remember her name, that was also part of the Gwich'in Steering Committee. Sarah James, and I haven't seen her for probably a couple years.
She's Sarah James. We're both Gwich'in. We're just months apart in birth, and she's still going strong. She's still our ambassador, and part of the Gwich'in Steering Committee.
And I hear Faith Gimmel is down here somewhere. Is Faith Gimmel associated? Well, she's working on Reds.
Yes.
And I didn't know if she's part of your contingency. Your
yes,
contingent.
She is.
Yes, she's part of your group as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah, I heard she spoke on just before Evo Morales did.
Yes, she did.
And I missed that because we were in here trying to get all the electronics put together. But maybe if you find Faith, okay. Can you send her up our way?
But I got to tell you, we walked in to the gathering, and all of a sudden I stopped and I said, "Hey, I hear my language. I hear my language." And I didn't know Faith was up there.
Uh-huh.
And she just started her presentation.
Oh, that must have been a real nice move for your heart.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, all right. Well, once again, why don't you give us your name and the organization that you're most associated with, and then we're going to fade out of here. Well, before we do that, we sort of understand at this point that something has to happen. What are the action items on your agenda that you think need to be implemented in order to deal with the situation of where we are at this moment?
As human beings, we have the greatest tendency to deny, to go into this denial mode. And it's such a part of us that sometimes we don't even notice that we do it. And that might be happening. I drive my car, and I'm using resources. And sometimes I might have more resources than you have, or you might have more than I have. And everything is energy-based, just like that little mitochondria that lives inside our cells, making our energy for us to move and to talk, etc. But anyway, I think that we have to acknowledge and everyone has to acknowledge that what we're doing. Not realize. We have to admit to our own selves. We have to do that for those 7 generations in front of us. What are they going to do? So we have to admit that Mother gives us life, that Mother nourishes us and teaches us and provides us with all that we need. It gives us, you know, you can name them yourselves. It gives us air. It gives us the food. It gives us the animals. What more? We're so ungrateful. Love. We need to get back to love and responsibility and sacrifice. We give a little bit now, and you know, maybe we can get back more.
I think that sort of brings up the whole idea of ceremony, of recognition of intention, vision, and the whole idea of denial. I think that's a pretty fascinating point that a lot of us are in or can be in, and all of that. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was nice just to run into you folks and it was so interesting as you came up to me and said, "Oh, I'm glad to see you." And the fact that we've never met was a wonderful kind of thought here. Oh yeah, go ahead.
We'd like to say thank you in our language.
Oh yeah, wonderful.
In our Athabasca language, we both have a different language because we're different.
Okay, you guys going to sing us a song?
No.
Chiknik.
Hold on one second. Let me flip this switch here. Go ahead.
Chiknik and Yeti Hunu Bugu Yagali Yes Sieti. And that means I hope that you have whatever you do in life, may you have success and be in good health.
All right, hope.
Thank you. And Masi, we say thank you, Masi. But big thank you, big. Big like when the ice breaks up in the Yukon River and it smashes and hits and you're just in awe, and thunder and just roll, and this is ice and nature moving. And the highest mountain in North America is they call it Denali, but our Indian word for it is they call it McKinley, and our word for it is Denali, and that means big, huge, humbling, and and our word is Cho, Masi Cho. Big thank you for having us here, and Masi Cho to Alaska Intertribal Council and to their chairman, Mickey Stickman. Mickey Stickman is also Indigenous Indian from Nulato and on the Yukon River. So you had Marianne, who is from the coast, and you had us who are from the interior. Just like Bolivia. Bolivia is interior, and we're interior. Masi Cho.
Masi Cho. Yeah, go ahead.
I would like to say another thing to Bolivia. I'd like to thank Bolivia because they made it possible for the Alaska delegation to be here. And also I would like to thank President Evos Morales for his firm stand on addressing climate change and the respect of our Mother Earth. And also, I don't want to forget Ecuador for standing firm on respecting Mother Earth and bringing these issues also to the world. And so, Chignik.
Chiknik Masicho, go ahead. Yeah. Just stick the microphone in between and you guys can.
Yeah, we're having fun now.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Oh yes, and Masicho from the Native people of Alaska. I feel I can say this for the people who live in the villages in Alaska. We had very low on oil, no money. Like I said, no, unemployment is very, very steep, very high there, and sometimes families have to move in all together in a small house, and also there's many of the villages, there's no running water. We use outhouses. And so very undeveloped. When people think of the United States of America, they think running water and all that, but it's not like that. All the resource and wealth that has gone out of Alaska has gone out of Alaska. And so it's not there. So President Chavez, Masicho, to you and your people for sharing, because they gave a not gallon, but what do you call them? Those oil to each household in every village in Alaska, to the native peoples. And that came from the people of Venezuela and Masi. And like we said, I want to tell you one thing. Excuse me. I see my people down here. I saw our chief walk by, and I was looking, but our chief has passed away. But we look so much alike. In fact, coming in here on the airplane, when they were passing out the what do you call duty papers, and the guy passing out, he looked at me and said, in your language, "Are you Bolivian?" The guy across the seat said, "No." I didn't know what he was saying.
Right.
But anyway, Marianne and I both see that. We both see our people down here. And my head sometimes go, I think I see somebody I know. And so it's just been marvelous. And everybody's been so kind and good to us. Masi Cho.
I think the point that you brought out is really phenomenal, that all of the oil, the Alaskan pipeline, would be sucked out of the very ground that you're standing on, yet to get oil for heating or fuel or it has to come from South America. That's an incredible indictment against the people and the corporations of the U.S.
Yes, it is. And, before our villages or the Alaska Intertribal Council accepted the oil from Venezuela, we decided to ask the federal government, the state government, and also the oil companies that were extracting our resource. They all said no. And so a big, big thank you, gracias mucho, Hugo Chavez, for helping our people out, because one thing that a lot of people are shocked when they go into the villages is that rural Alaska is a third world country, and they're shocked. I know when there was a big fire up in Hooper Bay, Alaska, and Billy Graham's son came up to build some homes and to help rebuild the school that had burnt. The people that he and the people that came with him were just shocked. They said, "We didn't know conditions like this existed in America." And we part of the high disease rate that we have is because there is no running water. or no sanitation. And on a personal note, thank you, Creator, for your divine intervention in confusing me with it, thinking you were someone else. Because, Creator works in mysterious ways. And so a big thank you to you. Thank you very much for your program and for asking us to be on. Thank you.
And this is Govinda, www.earthcycles.net, live here in Bolivia. Thank you as well. And I've got a couple of things that I need to jump into right this second. I'll catch you out the door here.